Hi, welcome to another episode of I Mustache You Something. Lou, you have a mustache, so you get to say it also.
I mustache you something.
See? Doesn't that feel natural? Doesn't that feel good? Doesn't that make you want
As natural as this mustache.
see? And if you grew a real mustache, it would feel even more real, and then you would have a lot more time on your hands because your wife would kick you out of the house, and B, you could do your own mustache series.
That I don't need enough time away from home. I don't need more time.
So I will introduce you, and then you will fill in any gaps. So Lorenzo is probably one of my two. I shouldn't quantify. It's not nice.
Two bald Filipino friends.
Yes.
I am one of your two bald Filipino friends.
Do you know that someone got mad at me that they felt like I liked you better? and like I tried to like be like, I mean not by a lot. Like I don't know.
So how long did it take you to dig yourself out of that hole?
but it was it was unprompted too, like that. I was kind of blindsided. And I mean, it's true. Like, you're one of my two favorite people that I went to med school with. Like, I'm not going to mention who the other person is, and whoever's listening that we went to med school with can just assume that they're the other.
That's true. I'm second place to whoever that is.
Well, no, I don't know if you guys are tied for first. Like, it's really hard to.
That's okay. You're not hurting my feelings.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah.
You've done enough of that.
What? From who? Not from me. I hurt your feelings?
No. I'm joking.
Okay. I'm like, no, please say it ain't so. So we graduated a really long time ago.
Really? Has it been that long?
It really has. It really has. Because when I said 15 years ago, who would have thought I'd have a mustache?
That's right. Really, I didn't think we knew each other 15 years ago.
We knew each other more than
that. We were studying in the Carrolls 15 years ago.
Longer.
Oh my God, yeah, longer than that.
A lot longer, because we took step one between second and third year. So
that's 2004, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
That was 16 years ago.
All right. Don't remind people. Let's not dwell on the years. Let's move on.
In our community, we have this term for like not the grandparents generation, but like sort of like the middle-aged people. And it's the tunts and uncles. Like, how you call my mom.
Yeah.
Right? So the tunts and uncles are, where you kind of don't want to be in your 30s, and then you start recognizing that you've kind of arrived in your 40s. And I have this conversation regularly with the college students from our parish, where I'm not an uncle, right? Like, I'm not an uncle. And they have like varying degrees of politeness.
Yeah. Right.
No. I mean, I don't think of you like one. And then there's the ones that are like, on what grounds would you not be? Like, you don't talk anymore.
Oh man, yeah, it is. I don't know about you. I just celebrated my 40th birthday last month, and I didn't think I would feel it, but I'm feeling it. It's taking longer for me to get in the course of like 1 month.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
Everybody kind of looks at me like I'm 5 years older.
Yeah.
Um, I'm feeling like I'm 5 years older. Um,
Do you make noises when you sit down and stand up? Like,
I do this thing where I stand up and I gotta stretch my back like that.
you gotta listen up. You gotta, you know, keep the joints moving.
Oh man. So yeah,
I
so
though. Like,
5 years ago when we were still in medical school.
yeah. No, I mean, it feels like, oh my God, it's been so long since we finished training. But then, like, okay, but like training itself took like, yeah, we've been like, you finished, I think, a year before me, right? Because you did
Mhm.
6 years,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you finished 2012 and I finished 2013. So you,
2011 actually, 2011
oh, but that was fellowship?
fellowship. Yeah.
Wow, I should have done off though, bro.
Shut up. I think I tried to talk you into it.
Yeah, no, remember I went to Shadow? Do you remember this?
No, tell me. I forgot.
So I showed up to an ophthalmology office because I was like, okay, like, why go through like the headache of ortho and like running all over the hospital, like cuckoo trauma and like all this stuff. And I sat in the ophtho office and I was like,
there's right, it's so boring. There's nothing to see, there's nothing to do.
and I was like, I don't think this is gonna work. I never went back. It was that one day. I was like, I don't know. And like in contrast, I went to the emergency room and I was like, you know, this was at Kings County. So I was like, do you guys need anything? Like, can they're like, yeah, I can just, walk around and see if I'm like, okay, sure. I found some like ortho residents like, you guys need some help with something? Like, yeah, sure, hang out with us. We got a couple of splints to put on. We could use an extra hand. I was like, great. I've never heard screaming like that. I was like, wow. Like, and they're putting on these splints and they're trying to reduce these fractures and like it's Kings County, so like there's
Very
resources.
different experience. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I think that's the reason why, I don't know if you remember, but I wanted to do ortho and neuro, or neurosurgery for a long time, and then
yeah.
sort of changed my mind. I think um, that that would have turned me off. That might have been,
I
what
was like,
turned you on to it would have turned me off.
man, like I felt bad for the people, but I was like, okay, this isn't boring. This is not off though. I was like, I'm gonna stay awake for this. I don't know. I do think back on it though, and I wonder like now, like I see your practice and you've got your practice in Connecticut and you know you've thrived and you got your family and there's like definitely like strong points for what you do. And I was like, I wonder what that would be like. And then I kind of picture myself doing it and I'm like, no, I would have gone crazy.
It's just funny how it rolls, right? I didn't even know what ophthalmology was until it was either you or Heidi said, "Why don't you look at ophthalmology?" And I was like, "What is that? Is that like ears?" And then she's like, "No, stupid!" Like, And then I did that one rotation, and it was really cool, and I sort of fell in love with it. But even then, and then if you roll things backwards, it's like, if I didn't know what ophthalmology was, I never would have gone to it. If I didn't know who Heidi was, I didn't know, I don't think I ever would have considered it or figured out what it was. And I never would have met Heidi unless you invited her to study for step ones, when we were like starting to get into it, to invite the smart friend to the group, to study.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I don't
and
know. study was the right word. It was more like
A 6-pack of Guinness and jerk chicken, right?
and that's all it took for us to like just sit there and be like, okay, what do we need to know? And she'd be like, "Bak, bak, 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 bak." I was like, okay, like when did you download this information? Like I just studied it, and we're like, we've been studying for hours. We don't know anything that you just
Right.
said.
She's like, it's on the third line
Yeah.
of page 27 of this chapter
Yeah.
in the
Like
notes.
we didn't
You don't remember that?
yeah, we saw it. We just, we're paying attention to, the fifth line of page 62, which we thought was also cool. Oh, what was there? It doesn't matter right now.
Right. Irrelevant.
Don't bring up other topics. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about not what we know.
Yeah. And I don't think we would have been studying together. You and I wouldn't have been studying together if if I hadn't sort of come out of my wheelchair in first year and said, "Hey, man, you want to study sometime? Do you remember that? To me, that's like one of the turning points of my life. Do you remember?
I remember the kid in the wheelchair. I really do, and I remember that vividly because I was like, wow, like that kid shows up. I'm like, I have like nothing wrong, like nothing, I can walk, I can play basketball, I can whatever. I show up and I sleep in class, and this guy gets rolled in on a wheelchair to actually pay attention. I'm like, man, that's impressive. So tell us about that experience, because I think one, it's a story of resiliency. Also, it was really funny.
What? Me being in a wheelchair was funny.
You remember what was funny about it? Do you remember our classmate that told you? First of all, tell us why you were in the wheelchair, and then I'll connect the dots.
Okay.
On why
maybe I suppressed this. I suppressed this memory.
This is phenomenal. This is one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my entire life.
So, in my senior year of college, I had like a herniated disc from doing a variety of things, like, playing too much golf, working out, riding my bike. And it just got worse over time. By the time we graduated, I was walking with a limp. By the time medical school started, I was in a real lot of pain. And then I did stupid stuff, during first year, like playing football, with the guys, with you and some of the other guys in the snow, or like when it was slippery outside, and I would just aggravate it. And then Thanksgiving, ironically, Thanksgiving, 2002, I woke up and I was in so much pain I couldn't even get out of bed. So I spent that Thanksgiving in bed. I wasn't at the dinner table. I wasn't with family, like, per se, but Thanksgiving was at our house, so it's not like I really missed out. But from that point on, from that Thanksgiving on, I was sort of in a wheelchair and or on crutches, where wheelchairs couldn't get me, in the dungeons of anatomy lab, and had to have surgery that December, about a month later.
Did you, though? Did you have to have surgery?
Good question.
What else did someone tell you to consider?
Someone told me to consider yoga.
Yes,
yoga. And to be honest, I was not. I didn't quite agree with that at the time, because I felt that I had tried stretching and exercising, and that's kind of what got me, I feel like, to that point. I don't know who's listening to this, so I don't want to, yoga and osteopathic medicine and allopathic medicine. It's I have have a great respect for the people who do it, and um, uh, I see people who have found success with it. It just wasn't for me at the time.
Listen,
That's all.
100%. Like I was just talking to one of the PCPs today, and the crux of the conversation was how important it is to send the message that not everybody needs surgery, right? You have a conversation with people, you say, listen, here's what I see. The odds of you doing just fine without an operation are really, really good. Here's the things that we can do to make those odds even better, right? And for the small subset of people that are seeing you for a problem that's not likely to get better with surgery,
Mhm.
you kind of have this conversation about like, okay, it's probably not going to get better without an operation,
Right.
but it's either time sensitive or it's not. If it's time sensitive, then we unfortunately have to be put in the position where we're a little bit heavy handed and we say, listen, like, you really ought to get this done. Somebody who breaks their hip, someone who breaks their femur, somebody, who has a really like serious injury, somebody who tears their rotator cuff, like, 50 something year old person, you know, all other things being equal, most likely we're going to say, listen, like, you want to get the best possible function. You don't really have much of a surgery has risks, but this is probably what you're going to do, right? Um, and if it's not time sensitive, then you assess the severity of the situation, right? If it's probably not going to get better without an operation, uh, and it's really severe, then why let the person suffer, right? And for your specific problem, actually, for a herniated disc, there is conservative management, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, so I totally skipped all of that. I had steroid injections times 3. Which after the first one, I was like, I feel great. I'm gonna go play football, and then that aggravated it. And then second and third injections didn't do quite as good, and that's ultimately what happened. What led to Thanksgiving. 20. That year, whatever.
and the data on those herniated discs is that if they're going to get better, they're probably going to get better in 6 weeks.
Mhm.
So it's not that like everything needs an operation, but it's that this first year medical student like isn't even an expert in, well, okay, maybe this person was an expert
She
in
is a little bit older than us, right? He or
what
she is a little bit older than us.
like probably an expert in yoga, maybe.
Yeah, right.
But like in terms of like the medical applications of yoga, that's why this person was there, right? They were there to take alternative medicine and bring it to an allopathic lens, and all very good things that I'm sure she was eventually very qualified to do,
Mhm.
but not at the time. And
I wasn't about to say, you can assume my care now.
I remember your reaction. You were like, guess who I talked to? I'm like, who? You're like, so and so. He thinks I should do yoga. I'm like, okay. You're like, I don't I don't think she realizes I'm in a wheelchair. So yeah, I mean, you had your conservative management like much more than 6 weeks. You had like the severity of symptoms, and it was just so like it's like a surgeon, recommending surgery to somebody just because that's what he does, right? It's like, oh, you ought to have an operation. It's like, okay, but not everybody gets better with an operation. Not everybody needs an operation. Like, oh, you ought to eat chiclets because I prescribe chiclets to
Right,
everybody.
right, right.
Like, no, like chiclets have no evidence-based medicine supporting them. Like, oh, you ought to do yoga. Like, okay, what is the data? What's the data? So yeah, I know it makes me super insensitive because I'm dismissing and because I'm laughing about you being in a wheelchair, but you know, none of this is news. None of this is news. So how does a nice person like you tolerate this? Like,
Tolerate what? The wheelchair? The pain?
no,
The yoga?
the 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 indifference to feelings. Because I had a very um like poignant interview this morning with Alex Fahim, who's one of the college students in our parish, and he's an incredible listener, and he listens to a fault to the point where he doesn't express his opinion. So I had a whole mustache conversation with him this morning, and I feel like you have the same skill set. Like you're able to draw out other people's thoughts, ideas, but I think you speak up more than he does. Like you're more likely to say like this is what I think. Um, but how does that work for you? That your one of your best friends from medical school doesn't have the same empathetic skill that you have.
I find you wildly entertaining. No, I do. It's funny you bring that up because I almost feel like I'm a listener to a fault too. There might be times where I feel like I should just speak up and just be mad about something, right? And then I'll take an example of my business partner. He's very he's got a fuse this short. Um, Otherwise, very thoughtful, very insightful, expresses himself very well, and otherwise very empathetic too. Except when his fuse goes from here to there, like things are running behind. He doesn't have what he needs. Like an orthopedic surgeon. The all of a sudden he gets all of a sudden he starts like saying mean things, right? Saying mean things, and I'm wondering like what is it about the stress of the situation that turns him from like overall nice guy to somebody that people are really intimidated by.
Mm.
And I can't place it because you know I've known him for a few years, but I can't figure that part out of him just yet. You though, you're not like him, where as far as I know, where um, you flip a switch and you're a totally different person. Um, but you're I really admire the way that you can just say what you want and um, and just be able to somehow diffuse the tension that it can create with wit and humor or some other combination of personality that people will be like, I should really be offended right now, but your bow tie is hysterical.
I did get in trouble though because when we switched to Zoom in the spring,
Mhm.
um, I was in a class with a professor for like a second semester. Like I'd already taken a class with him, and I already knew the professor really well. And then, like a third of the way through the semester, the COVID thing happened, and instead of being in person, we went online. And even though the professor knew me really well, the students in the class didn't. And I said something. I was like, are we really saying blah blah blah? Because I'm doing this master's at BC, and you're Catholic, so you know how there's a whole like wide spectrum of people in the Catholic Church. Some that like are much more liberal than I am, and people that are much more conservative than I am.
Mhm.
I'm kind of in the middle, so I kind of feel like okay, like I don't have an issue kind of speaking up and saying, hey, listen, like this might be a little bit more conservative, or this might be a little bit more liberal, but I feel like it's a safe space for me to speak up. But doing so online, right? it was taken like completely the wrong way, and apparently like this person was like very upset, and I asked my professor, like, hey, was there like any issue with like what I said, because I knew that like I was pushing buttons a little bit. Yeah, well, about that, I'm like, oh
Oh
no.
no.
Like, listen, I know what you were trying to do, but because we weren't in person, so like this person that was upset, and he didn't tell me who it was, like he kept it completely confidential, but he said whoever was upset um didn't get the benefit of having you in person to know that you're just kind of just saying it, but it's not intended at all to be sort of offensive or whatever.
Yeah. Like, oh, the crap.
I was like, I'm so sorry. He's like, I know, I know, I know. I don't mean to. He's like, I know, I know, I know. So I don't know. Like I genuinely and I talked to my friend Dave Broder, who's a classmate of mine from college, and he's another like very like you, like very thoughtful, very kind, like well spoken, like like the Arabic word is muhazzab, like a like a respectable person.
Mhm.
Like why these respectable people are friends with me, I don't really know, but I think wildly entertaining, I think is the answer. So I asked Dave this, so I guess I must ask you something as well, which is how do we find each other, right? Like the wheelchair, right?
Mhm.
Like that's kind of like the story, but um, like I struggled with this with Dave. I'm like, how do we find each other? Like where we met lots of people in medical school, but how did we recognize like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is the kind of person I want to spend more time with.
Oh, well, I guess why I picked you, because I could have picked anybody, right?
The same. And I'm like, this guy wants to hang out with me like a normal guy. Well, I'm not a normal guy.
Well, and I guess that's what drew me to you. You're not a normal guy. The
Yeah, most people run. Most people are like,
So, I was always in the back, right? The back of lecture hall, way at the top, because that's the only place that my wheelchair could kind of go. And I would, scope everybody out, and during lectures, people would ask questions, people would talk, people would fall asleep. Um, well, no, that's not true. If there was anybody in the class in the class who was actually raising their hands or asking questions, um, asking thoughtful questions, not stupid questions, it was actually you, or anybody who had like colorful comments. It was you, and there was just something about you where I knew your brain was just like working a little differently than mine. And what got me through high school, what got me through college, was certainly not working, in medical school, because I was really struggling. Um, uh, so one day, or one week, I was like, I'm not going to survive medical school, if I keep this up. I was really, really like, I had no direction with how to proceed. Then one week I just decided I gotta talk to somebody, because at the time I didn't have friends. I was like, um, kind of wheeling myself back and forth, and you know, um,
and trying yoga.
and and I think you must have asked a question or something, or made a comment or something one day. I was like, I'm gonna go talk to him, because he's definitely smarter than I am. And I need to find I need to find somebody smarter than me, or at least thinks different than me.
Good
To
thing I introduced you to Heidi.
Yeah. No, that was good for all of us. So maybe I was wrong about you being smarter than me, but we needed somebody who was like really smarter than
Yeah, 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 yeah.
um, but you know, I don't think I could have studied with somebody who was like a bookworm. I don't think I could have made friends with, you know, somebody who just seemed too relaxed. Um, I felt like I needed somebody who was funny and, you know, focused and thoughtful. And I was like, I'm just going to take a chance on Mina. And that's what happened. And then you
And
said yes. I was like, oh my God, he said
I know,
yes.
nobody's ever asked me before. Actually, same guy, Alex Fahim, who I was talking to this morning. Um, we were talking to the college students and asking for them to help with the high school group, and we said, okay, like we have a meeting for the high school kids today. Who can show up? And I'm like, Angie, like, no, I got this. Mark, no, I got this. Like, so and so, no. I'm like, and Alex goes, I can come. And I'm like, oh, great. And Alex goes, I thought you were gonna make fun of me. I'm like, why? No, I'm desperate. If I make fun of you, you might not show up. Goes, yeah, but that hasn't stopped you before. I'm like, yeah. This is like the day before prom, where like you're just lucky to just find anyone. And then Mark Khalil also, like in the mustache series, Mark goes, I can speak from experience that girls aren't more likely to say yes the day before prom.
Oh. Oh,
Like,
spoken from experience.
I mean, like, like that's a man after my own heart. Actually, Jesse Newman, who you watched his video, Jesse Newman is the one that set me up with my prom date, because our mutual friend, who was awesome, like one of my favorite people, had a prom date, and apparently like it fell through. And Jesse calls me. He goes, Mina, you have a date for prom? I'm like, no. So and so is available. I'm like, okay, what does that mean to me? He goes, ask her. I'm like, but what if she said she's not going to say no, Mina? She had a date, it fell through. We already booked the limo. She needs a date. Just ask her. I'm like, so it's pretty much guaranteed. Like he's like, it's all teed up. Just ask. I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. But yeah, like I said to Jesse, and like I said to Dave, and like Mark also feels like, we're surprised when people are like, oh, me, really? Okay, yeah, sure. And I think I don't know. You tell me if this makes sense to you. I think when you were saying like funny but like focused, and like not too relaxed, but like, still not like a bookworm, like you're drawing on a lot of tensions, right? Like you were saying all sorts of things that were opposing to each other.
Oh,
And
that's interesting. Yeah.
right, like did you hear yourself saying that?
Like I knew what I didn't want.
Yeah, but like all the things that you didn't want were opposite to each other.
Opposites. Yeah. So mediocrity, or
So
meeting somewhere in the middle, right?
you were looking for a paradox.
Interesting.
Is that fair, or am I misrepresenting what you said?
I don't think I've ever heard or thought about it and tried to define it as succinctly as that. But yes, I guess, Mina, you are a paradox.
And I
No,
know
and I don't mean that in a joking way. I can see it.
you can
I
see
can
it,
see
right?
it. Yeah.
You're like, who is this guy? I don't understand. This doesn't make any sense. Right?
Yeah.
And like for me, nothing makes sense. Like it's like, oh, like you seem like you have some clue. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go with you. like you and Dave and Jesse. But I think that one of the things that like all three of you guys have in common is that, first of all, I'm very grateful that like you accepted me for who I am, which is rare. Um, but also that like when we talked about things, it was never this black and white. It was never like, oh, it's studying so it's good,
Hmm.
or it's relaxing so it's bad, or vice versa. It
Right.
was it's yeah, and then like yeah, we're gonna and then we're gonna and like this constant like never feeling like you have a good balance. I don't like I don't know, like I think it's healthy and I think it's appropriate for the complex world that we live in. And these are the kind of people that like in a time like COVID
Yeah.
kind of pivot and go, yeah, well, things didn't make sense before. Like it's not they stopped making sense in March. They continued to not make any sense, you know, as they did before.
Yeah. I think we need that. I think we need to find the paradoxes in our lives, don't we? Um, yeah. The, you know, I feel like I see that in the people I meet every day. The most interesting people are the people who I don't think I ever would have, stopped in the street to have a conversation with, until they're sitting in my chair, in the office, and um, or forced to be around, or or choose to study with, right?
Yeah. So do you chit chat with your patients, by the way? Do you small talk with them?
Oh, I do. I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. It sets me back like way behind in the office, but well, I do it for a few reasons. One is patients love it. They feel like they can relate to me better, as Lorenzo and not Dr. Cervantes. Um, and I'll find some sort of similarity or something to talk about. Um, the and the second thing is it just makes the day go by. It makes it more meaningful, I guess, the work that I do. If I know that I'm treating a person, um, with a family or with certain interests, or a certain situation, um, the most common thing I treat is cataracts, right? You
Right.
know, uh, cataracts can be really monotonous if you're just treating cataracts. And if you watch one cataract surgery, it's almost the same as the next cataract surgery, it's the same as the next cataract surgery. And for all intents and purposes, a cataract surgery day can be like a factory. We'll bring the patient in, do the surgery, bring the patient out, bring the next patient in, and what one can get lost with who's under the drape, because all we're seeing is the eye, under the drape, or through the drape rather. We don't see the rest of the person, under there. Um, so in small talking with patients in the office, even small talking with patients during cataract surgery, it's really a lot of fun. We because they're lightly sedated, but they can have a conversation and they don't feel any pain, and they're just very relaxed. We can just talk about anything. We have the music playing, everybody's talking about something, and patients will say they had a good experience. So that's another reason why small talk is kind of good, because it takes the patient's mind off of surgery, um, and they have a good experience. Um, but going back to, I guess, the more meaningful thing is that it makes the work more meaningful, for me. Um, the
So, so hold on. Can you make a distinction for me?
Yeah.
So I don't consider getting to know someone, right? Like for example, like I had a lady today who clearly like she's trying to like blurt out whatever she needs to say about her shoulder. I'm like so, like something else is going on. I'm like okay, like don't feel like pressured. You need to talk about your shoulders. Something else going on. Like what's happening?
Mhm.
Right? Turns out like a family member just passed away like 2 weeks ago, and like another family member's in the hospital. Another family member just had surgery, and it's like, okay, like thanks for coming in and making your appointment, but like hold on a second, like let's put the shoulder on pause for a second and let's process these things before we that I don't think that's small talk though,
No,
right?
but small talk got you to that point. And many times small talk gets you to that point. No,
I don't
you putting it on pause is not you putting it. The whole, you know, history and everything on pause to dwell, is not exactly small talk. I agree with you there. But usually I'll open up a a patient encounter with, "Hey, what's up? What's going on?
yeah,
What's going
yeah,
on with
what's going
you?
on? And
What's
then
up?"
they'll say something like 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 especially now, like
Yeah. Haven't you heard of COVID?
like, oh, how are things going? What do you mean? Like just talking. But at what point does that like introduction turn into something substantive, or does it not matter? Like, am I making a false distinction?
No, I don't know. I think it depends on how much the patient is willing to be forthcoming. Do they want to establish a relationship like that? Are they there just for the work? If a patient comes in and says, I say, "What's up?" They're like, "Well, I can't see." I'm like, "All right, let's talk about that now." All right. If somebody comes in and says something like, "Oh, my you know homeschooling sucks. I hate but my kids are always around." And I'm like, "Oh man, yeah, I mean, I'm not always around, but I feel like I can relate. But um
So how much time do you spend on that, like homeschooling, say, for example?
um I don't know, a few minutes until I can almost segue into, "So what's going on with your eyes?" Almost until like they've had enough talking about it.
And
Um,
does it depend more on the patient and whether they're interested in sharing, or depend on you whether you're interested in what they have to say?
um, oh well, sometimes well, sometimes the patients will say a cue and that just like totally interests me, or like if they're wearing like a Jets jersey, I'll say something about the Jets, or if they see pictures of my sons and they're like, "Oh, they like to fish, they like to play golf, they played hockey," and then they'll start talking about their own grandkids, or um, they'll talk about stuff like that. And then if it's something I'm really interested in, I'm like, "So give me," um, you know, I've been invited on fishing trips. Um, some people have asked to like, I don't know, do work on projects that they know I'm working on, like house projects and stuff like that. Um, I've had, um, man, why I'm drawing blanks, but I feel like you know, more than a few times, um, people have, really opened themselves up to me. Um, I'll give them my cell phone number, and we'll invite each other for uh, to do stuff. It depends on the person. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens enough.
See, this is where I wish I was a nice person. That sounds really good. It's like human beings, and like
Yeah, but yeah, right. It starts off with finding something similar to, um, I don't know, starts off with finding some type of similarity, something to, get off the same foot.
interesting. Maybe the patients I'm just connecting with are just crazy like me, where
I don't know.
You know,
But again, this is why I fall like 2 hours behind schedule. You know, maybe I should see less patients a day. And
wait, how many patients do you schedule an hour?
uh, it depends. But it'll be something like, it could be something like 40 to 45 patients a day
Over how many hours?
over 8 to 5, 8 to 4, something like that.
So 8 hours, 40 patients. So yeah, that's like
Yeah.
5 patients an hour, right? That's the correct math. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty standard. Like 10-minute visits and then 10 minutes to wiggle room, notes, catch up. That sounds about right.
Does it though?
I mean,
Everybody's different, right?
in
Some people,
in an ideal world, no. In reality, yes. Right? Because I mean that's what I do. Like 5 to 6 patients an hour. Um, so yeah, some people need longer. Some people
Mhm,
like they'll need 40 minutes. Like really complex case,
right.
complex discussion, lots of questions. Okay, you're half an hour behind. You have two of those, you're an hour behind,
Mhm,
right?
right.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, I think I think connecting with people and making sure that they feel heard is really important. Um, and I would distinguish that from small talk because I think it's substantive and I think it um, is what's the word? It's meaningful, right? It's meaningful to both you and to them. Um, so I don't know. Like I think I want to have this conversation with you again, like a month from now, like not recorded, like just between you and me.
Mhm.
And like after the conversation with Alex today, I promised him I would look for more opportunities to endure small talk, which I have no tolerance for.
Well,
Uh,
I was going to say something that just came to mind.
yeah,
If a patient comes in and is like thinking about their problem and thinking you're just going to talk about surgery, or come across as um, um, you know curtain and just the same old stereotypical doctor, it
yeah.
almost feels like small talk is a courtesy, rather than getting to know somebody, like saying please and thank you and nice to meet you. Small talk can be considered like a small courtesy to open the door, not the physical door, but open the door to to personality and conversation.
But I don't think it's small talk to start out with, hey, how's it going? Or hey, like, how's everything? Or, if you ask like, how are you doing? And they go, terrible. Like the do you mean the shoulder or do you mean, just in general? And yeah, like give them a little bit of space to kind of, be themselves and to reflect a little bit. I think that's substantive. I think it's getting to know the person. But then when it's like, you know, I don't know, like small talk to me is like people at church that are like, oh, how's mom? So mom's fine. And your parents-in-law, they're good. Yeah, they're good. You don't even care. You're just trying to fill
so
this.
that, I guess maybe that's a difference. If you don't care, small talk is boring and meaningless. If you can do small talk in an empathetic way, where it it comes across as you're listening, then it can be very meaningful.
Wait, I just hold on. I just hit something here. I think maybe I don't mind asking people small talky questions because they expect it. But maybe I think what really bothers me is when people ask me small talk because I don't want to answer any of them.
Sure, I can understand that.
Because it just hit me. I just realized. So are so when you're talking to your patients in the office, what you're calling small talk is your discovery of who they are as a person, right? You're not, yes?
Exactly. That's exactly it.
You're not like sitting
Yeah.
there
So,
telling them,
right. What if patients try to turn it around to me and ask me how I am, or try to make small talk with me, I will quickly try to pivot and make it back about them.
okay, okay, that I'm comfortable. Yeah, because I don't want to is it like rarely, like there's only a handful of patients that like we'll talk about stuff that we're mutually interested in,
Mhm.
like you know how I was like in the town um, committees and stuff like that. There's another guy in my practice, like a patient of mine, who is involved with his town committees. So sometimes we talk about that and that sort of thing. But like, it's rare. It's rare. So yes. So discovering something about them that connects to you to them as a person and connects them to you as someone who is interested in them as a person, not just as a eye
Mhm.
or shoulder. Yeah, that I totally understand. Okay, so that's a really important distinction. Like small talk about the person, not them asking you inane questions
Right.
that
Right.
they don't want you to answer and you don't.
Right. Yeah. That's a great distinction.
Okay, I think between you and Alex, I've gained an appreciation of. Again, I don't know if it's a distinction between small talk and something else, or if it's two types of small talk. But you guys have really helped me. I really appreciate that.
Good.
So
You still are confused.
no,
You're still thinking about it.
this is like when my kids, they're like, "Daddy, are you upset with me?" I'm like, "No, that's you look really upset." I'm like, "No, I just naturally frown. Like that's just what I do." Um, no, so yeah, I'm just naturally confused. Okay, that's really helpful. That's very helpful. Okay. So what about like outside of the office? Like if somebody tries to small talk and ask you like, so did you ever wear a fake mustache? Actually, no, that's really interesting because then you'd be like,
Yes.
yeah,
I've never worn a fake mustache before.
it looks smashing, by the way.
Actually,
I
it felt like, as I was like laughing and smiling, I felt like it was about to peel off my face, and I had to like smooth it over a little bit.
yeah, I don't have that concern. If this falls off my face, it's taking my lip with me, and that would be horrible. Um, but yeah,
You
like
said
some
outside the office.
yeah, outside the office at like a party or like at church or like, family gathering and someone, they've got like the list of questions and like there's actually this really funny Arabic comedian who's like, those people that have like the list of questions, they don't even wait for the answer. Like, oh, how's your dad? What did you go to school? Like, like
Oh my God. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not as successful in small talk or in chit chat outside the office in like social situations. I'm ready to hightail it out of there.
what's
Um,
the difference?
I don't know.
Because I hear
Um,
you. I'm 100% with you because like again, like I hate small talk out of the office, categorically reject it. In the office, I don't consider it small talk, but again, it's not people asking me, it's me getting to know, like genuinely getting to know them. Like it's substantive. It's not small talk to me. It's medium talk.
mhm.
It's medium-sized talk, not big talk. It's just, medium.
Yeah, I don't know. I have thought about this. Um, in those awkward silences at parties. Like, why am I even here trying? I'm forcing this to happen. It feels so awkward. Um, I don't know. Maybe there's no end goal or purpose in mind. If somebody's in the office, my I'm actively just trying to engage somebody who doesn't know me very well, to show them that I have an open ear and an open mind. trying to connect with them so that way they can accept me as a doctor. You know, in in a social situation, somebody I don't know, a complete stranger, if it doesn't look like we have anything in common, um, it's randomly shooting questions and comments and trying to make things stick. It feels like, you know. Um,
I'll tell you what Alex said. Alex said most people are walking around with a bucket of word vomit that they're just trying to find someone to dump on. And he has taken it upon himself on behalf of society and in lieu of you and I, who wouldn't be able to do this, he will sit there and draw out the vomit so that they can sit there and like rah, rah, and like get it out of their system. And I'm like,
yeah, I don't know. So, along these lines, this is something that Heidi and I have talked about. Why is it so hard to make friends now than it was like when we were kids or in school? You know,
yeah, no,
I almost feel like it's the same problem. I almost feel like this is the same exact problem.
100%. Mary says the same thing. She's like, two kids see each other and they're like, yeah, we're about the same height. Let's hang out.
Yeah.
They're like best friends. Like, oh, we're around the same age, like, within a couple of years, there's no real other, you and me, we'll be friends. And that's it. They're friends. Like, that's it. They're hanging out, totally natural. And for us, it's like, I don't know, what's your philosophy on Cheetos? Like,
and we could really be trying, like our kids are in the same classes. We have, similar, backgrounds, but yet, making the meaningful friendship and effort to, to be friends is really much more difficult.
but that end in mind might not be the same. So I think you hit on something, and this is what Aristotle, like, hundreds of years, um, before Christ, and like thousands of years ago, um, would call the telos, which is like your desired end. And he basically like boils everything down to like, if you know what someone's desired end is, you know how they're going to make decisions. So in the office, the telos is clear, like the desired end is clear. Like the patient wants to get better, you're there because you want them to get better. That's the shared goal. Like it's clear, and everything works towards that telos. And I think that, in faith communities, sometimes we assume that we have the same telos, but we don't.
Mm-hmm.
And in social situations, it's even more nebulous than that.
Yeah, sure.
So
Yeah.
like Jacob has friends, and like, we meet and we hang out, like, oh, nice people, I like them, enjoyed the company, conversation, jokes, never see them again. But you're right, there's no point, right? There's no telos.
Yeah. What is the telos there? For entertainment? For
I got Netflix. Like, I don't $11 a month. I don't have to, leave the house. It's great. So I don't think we need people for entertainment. So what else is it?
Yeah, I don't drinking buddies, support,
Listen, if it's
favors, yeah, maybe everybody has a different telos. Like you said, everybody has a different telos.
Yeah.
Some people, might not have a telos.
and that terrifies me, right? Because like I'm already planning on like, you know, the Telos chess game of, you know, my 60s, 70s, and God forbid my 80s. Like, you know, I don't ever want to be bored. I don't ever want to not have a telos, right? So it's like, okay, like I'm not gonna do ortho forever, you know. I'm not gonna I hope I'm not gonna drive my kids crazy of like, oh, what are you reading? What are you doing? um so I'm trying to find like, okay, like these are things that I can be interested in, like, you know, sustainably in the future down the road, things that are going to work my mind and, you know, writing and, you know, what have you. But yeah, you're right. Like I think some people, they're kind of like, huh, whatever, day to day. And I don't get that. And I think to me that's a barrier in connecting with people.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Now I'm going to be, whenever I meet somebody, I'm going to be thinking, what is their telos? I'm
Why don't
actually going to ask that question.
Yeah, why not? Like, so, I mean, you know, I would ask, right? Like, right? And I
Wait, would
think
you ask it just like that? So
I don't,
Aristotle, Aristotle's this guy.
I
What
don't
is your
know.
telos?
I might, I might, I might. Um, but even if you don't ask it explicitly, I think trying to figure that out, right? And I don't know why we're not upfront with that. Like,
Yeah, maybe we should be. Maybe
why
we
not?
should
Like,
be.
why not ask people like, hey, what are you looking for in a friend? Like, whoa, 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 that's personal. Like, okay, don't answer it.
But I'm not guaranteeing that I'm going to ever speak to you again.
I mean, but if you can't articulate it, or
Mhm.
if you can't at least like, you know, mope around in the dark for it, right? Then what's the point, right? Because if we're not looking for something, then
Mhm.
don't look. Again, just stay home and watch Netflix. But if um we're looking for something, then let's be clear and let's be explicit about what we're looking for. I don't think that's unfair. I don't think that's unreasonable.
That's not unfair, especially if you're looking for something.
Exactly. We're all looking for something. So why not say this is what I'm looking for? And then someone else says, hey, I'm looking for the same thing. Like, okay, let's look together.
Perfect. Right? Match made in heaven right there.
And someone else says, I hate people that look for that. Like, okay, cool. You stay over there.
Yeah.
We won't small talk and spend 30 minutes talking about nothing so that I can discover that you hate people that are looking for what I'm looking for. I don't know. I know it sounds crazy. Like, hey, what's your telos?
That is a fascinating question.
Like you know, I could tell you. I'd be like, oh well, you know, and then sometimes this, and then like, you know, on Tuesdays I look for this, and then like Fridays I'm like, and then I'm like all the time I'm like, yeah, like I don't think it's an unfair question. If somebody hasn't thought of it, then they should think about it.
Mhm.
That's what I think. I feel like we're in the carols again. And then this is when Heidi walks in and she recites, and it's confusing because we refer to two Heidis. We refer to our classmate Heidi and your wife Heidi, two different Heidis.
Spelled differently.
Yeah, Haiti. Uh, so Haiti would walk in. She's gonna be so pissed at me.
It's funny because my wife, Heidi, her mom calls her Haiti.
No,
Yeah.
and it's pronounced
Haiti.
Haiti
Yeah, in Finnish, it's Haiti.
and spelled Heidi, and the other one is pronounced Heidi and spelled Haiti. Wild, wild. How did we not? I didn't connect that before. Yeah, so this is where we're sitting here talking about like, oh, you know, we should be talking more about telos. And Haiti walks in and goes,
Hey, are you guys ready?
You guys study anything? Like, oh yeah. We're studying
Put the Guinness away.
studying this thing. It's really interesting. And she's like, okay, well, what do you know about the markers? Like, oh yeah, there's markers. That's right. I don't know. And then she recites them.
I had a patient on donezepil the other day, and I thought of you.
That is the pit. You remember? I actually don't remember. What was the mnemonic for "done is the pill"?
it's donepezil. I don't know. Done is the pill. For some reason, my mustache is falling off again.
Do you remember the one that goes with amlodipine?
No.
Remember amlodipine and nifedipine? Amlodipine.
It's so stupid.
Because we turned amlodipine like I'm loaded, like I've got a gun, like I'm amlodipine. You had nifedipine? You had enough? You got nifedipine? I'm amlodipine.
I don't think I ever used that one.
Oh no, I remember. You're such an idiot.
Oh my God.
They're the calcium channel blockers.
Yeah.
You have nifedipine?
I can't believe that's what we resorted to. Oh my God.
I have no memory. I have zero. Like I have zero working memory. Like there's no way for me to take a piece of
Oh, by the way, I had remember that book, Microbiology for dummies or whatever it's called, Microbiology for medical students.
Made ridiculously simple. Yes.
Yeah, made ridiculously simple. I was at a conference, at an ophthalmology conference, and there's this really well-known ophthalmologist there. His name's William Tratler. He's a cornea refractive guy in Florida. And we were just talking, and or somebody tried to introduce me to him, but I already knew who he was. But he says, "Hey, I'm Bill Tratler. You might have read one of my books, Microbiology Made Ridiculously Simple." I was like, "What? You got me through medical school."
It was like one of the only subjects that I didn't hate because they taught it, or the book taught it, the way that I actually can learn something. It was like, let's make this as stupid as possible so that you can't forget it. It's like, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And, turns out he's this really brilliant cornea refractive guy.
He should write all the books. If only he wrote pathology and anti-neoplastic drugs
and neurodiagrams, spaghetti diagrams.
Torture, absolutely.
I want you guys to memorize the spaghetti diagram. It's as bad as it sounds.
Well, my friend, it's always entertaining, enlightening, and enjoyable to talk to you. I've learned a lot, as always. I think we maybe, at least for myself, have a better appreciation of when small talk is meaningful and maybe medium talk, and when instead of small talk, you just ask about the telos. And
yeah, that's right.
Why not? So, any closing words for the handful of people that actually listen to this thing?
I'm sad that this is stopping right now. I kind of want to just keep talking. I miss you, man. I really do.
I miss you too. And we're going to continue these. And the people that are interesting, I'll probably invite back. And I'm probably going to continue the podcast weekly. So
fantastic, man. I'm glad you're doing this.
It's fun. It's really fun. And
it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, like I really don't care if anybody listens to it, but like there's a handful of people that they're like, it's really fun. I'm like, I think so too. So thank you for joining us, and hopefully there will be a next time.
Until next time,